For May 2nd, 2017, 6 o'clock. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance. First order of business for the Board of Selectmen is reorganization of the Board of Selectmen. I was chair for the last year. Typically, we move that around, so I'm entertaining motions from the board.
I'd make a motion that we don't turn it around this year and we keep you as chair, because you've done such a fine job.
Either that or I take the chest shots well.
I gave you a compliment
I
there.
appreciate that. I thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And I'll second that.
Discussion?
Yeah, discussion-wise, I mean, seriously, I think because you've got the time to devote to it, you spend an awful lot of time, and you have the background in to keep the going day to day, and where the rest of us are working. So I think you make a good person to have as a chair.
It is remarkable the amount of time that's spent day to day between phone calls, emails, and meeting people
Mm-hmm.
to discuss things, just to keep everybody on point.
Yep, no, I agree.
Just gotta get you closer to the mic, that's all.
I'm never gonna win this battle. All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Next question is vice chair.
Mm-hmm.
We doing the same? If so, I recommend John Martin.
Second.
No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
This is getting easy. Now we need a clerk of the board. Do we hear a motion?
Do you want
It's
to stay with
usually
that?
the junior member.
Doesn't matter.
So then have the new member. Generally how it goes, so might as well have it go through.
You
I-
gotta turn your mic to you because I'm gonna catch it for not
I'm-
hearing you.
Because Reenie's not here, I don't know, I don't know, waste that on her.
I know you did that to me when I wasn't here when I first joined.
I know, that was different.
I came back and I was clerk, so
So I'm going to make a motion.
might as well
Jim
spread the
stay-
love, right?
Jim stays as the clerk, and I'm not looking that way.
It's good? Here's a second.
I'll second.
Discussion? Mr. Labrie?
I'm fine.
We have a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, Jim.
Congratulations, Jim. All right. That was easy. Next, I'm going to take a couple of items and get them cleared up because they're simple and fast. First is we have a liquor license. You want to read that one into the record?
Sure. Okay. Name of applicant, Crystal Kane, location, Conant Park. Is hereby granted a special license to provide wine and malt beverages only to be drunk on the premises under Chapter 138, Section 14 of the Liquor Control Act. One day wine and malt beverages only. Saturday, May 20th, 2017, from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. for a party. License is granted in conformity with the statutes and ordinances related thereto and expires May 20th, 2017, unless sooner suspended or revoked.
I hear a motion to grant the permit.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Now, it looks like it's all filled out and signed properly.
Yeah, it's all.
All in favor?
He's paid and everything, so we're good.
So moved.
Aye.
Bob, does everybody have to sign this, or just chair? Wine and malt? All?
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, you can start first.
You sure can.
Sir. That's the one. Right? Okay. Other issue on the agenda is signing of warrants. For the record, on April 24th, warrant W17-43 for $90,421.07. April 24th, payroll 17-42 for $254,558.60. April 24th, PD 17-42, $3,787.84. May 4th, PD 17-44, $46,815.17. May 4th, 2017, P 17-44 for $264,643.66. That's just a matter of record for us. Sorry.
It's clear, so you can see it better on the screen. Just reformatted it.
So it's not this one. This one. I just moved that one. Where did it go? See, it's there twice, Bob. So, is this the one, Bob? No, that's at 8:23, that's not it. That's 4 o'clock today,
Load it right from the thumb drive.
but that one's 4 o'clock today. No, that's not today.
No, it would be, I did it around later than that.
All right,
That's it, yeah.
I'll just
Well, the one
open.
that says copies from today at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, but I reformatted it so you could see it easier. I took out some of the coloring.
So did you want,
But wouldn't it just say copies?
It's the same thing.
Oh.
It's the same chart. Just,
But the dates on both those files are different, so that's why I'm wondering.
that's why I'm
I
asking.
took the file, this afternoon's file,
Mm-hmm.
you would say.
Is that the right one?
It's the same file, but I took out the coloring so people could see it better. Somehow that doesn't seem to be the right one.
Well, you want me to jump to the other one?
Who's the other one?
Might as well do it right and get it so everybody's comfortable. The board want to review the minutes for approval while I'm doing this?
I've already read it.
Yeah, me too.
John, you want to read down the minutes for approval?
Sure. Minutes for approval.
You know, just tried to highlight it so you could read it easier on the screen.
Go ahead, John, read them.
Okay, minutes to approve, January 5th, 2017, regular meeting minutes, January 18th, 2017, special meeting minutes, January 24th, 2017, special meeting minutes. Has everybody read them?
I have. I'm all set.
Yep.
Do I hear a motion to accept the minutes?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, minutes are approved. So I think we have all the loose ends cleaned up except for executive session, so I think we can move right now into,
You have the back page.
Did we sign for the COA?
I understand,
Okay.
but I'm looking at the COA request.
Sign
Yep.
it?
I'm trying to clean up all the loose things before we get into the budget, because that's going to take a while.
Okay.
So if Shannon's here, she probably can explain to us about the raising the property tax work-off program limits.
So the state has increased it from $1,000 to $1,500 per year. We are at $750, and I propose that we match the state and we do $1,500.
Do we need a vote of the select board to do this?
Yes. So you need to accept the fact that we are going to increase it to $1,500.
And is this a vote of the Council on Aging Directors request?
It doesn't go through them. I called the state, and it just has to be by the select board.
So you're requesting it, though, as the COA?
Yes.
Does Janine know about this? Does she have any comments or anything, or does it affect overall budget much?
I haven't talked to Janine about it. I passed it through the assessor's office to let them know.
Do many people take advantage of it now?
There's like not even a half a dozen.
It's too bad.
Not even a half a dozen, really, that I've seen. I've only seen 2 or 3 that have passed by me in that office. I don't know how many are over there now. For the senior tax work-off, how many do we have? Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, less than a half a dozen. Yeah. Yeah, so hardly any.
Do I hear a motion?
It's been approved through the assessor, so I'll make a motion that we approve it and raise the limit from, what is it, 750 to 1,500?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's 750 to 15.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Yeah,
Discussion?
Yeah, conversation-wise, we're doing this for the seniors, so we need to get it out to these folks that is available and where they can come in to work off those hours.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have a lot of seniors, obviously, and $1,500 is some good money for a lot of people. So we need to really promote it.
Maybe Art can put it on the website.
Motion's made, second, it's on the table. Do I hear a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. All right, next thing is first floor selectmen's room use. Again, Council on Aging?
I would like to see if we can use it for our exercise classes that we have 3 mornings a week, because if there's any other activity going on in the center, it's very disruptive. So I haven't seen anybody using the room those 3 mornings a week for about an hour and 15 minutes. And I gave Bob the list of the days and the times.
Would you like to know those dates and times proposed?
They're work days, though, for the rest of the building, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. Mondays, 8:45 a.m. to 10:15. Tuesdays, 8:45 to 10:30. Thursdays, 9:15 to 12:30.
This is gonna be playing music?
The aerobics, when they play music, the yoga one, if they do, it's very low, because it's calm, cool and collective.
I guess my comment's going to be because we have people next door. If we do it, let's do it on a trial basis and see how it goes.
Well, I've heard some, let's listen to what they got to say, I guess.
Hi.
Hi.
Lucy Dalton, Assistant Town Clerk next door. I live at 10 Strong Road. If you're talking about using this room for the yoga classes and aerobic classes, I'm not speaking for Janine, but this came about last week. They were in here, and they were loud. We had to shut the door. We had to shut that door. We had to shut our doors. There was a lot of yelling going on. The aerobics teacher is very loud.
Okay.
If you attend a class, you will hear it.
They're all signed?
Besides the fact that
Okay, good.
once the sweat starts coming in here, it's going to start to smell in here. So that's just my opinion.
So you've already had experience with the noise and
Yes.
it's loud.
Yes,
Okay.
last week. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, there was a discussion with Janine
Okay.
about this. So.
Thanks.
Thoughts?
I'm going to defer to the people that work in the building, and if it's already had some experience with that, is there another location they could use? I didn't think of the perspiration and all that stuff too, but after a while it builds up, yeah.
Yeah, I think we should, I mean, my opinion is, I think we should,
They have a senior center.
yeah,
but
I think to keep them there.
I'm asking because they asked.
I'm sorry?
I'm asking because it was asked of me to ask. That is why it's come up.
Right. Well, the select board controls the building, so,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're asking the right group. It's just a question of, do we think this is acceptable practice when we have a business operation in this building? We put in a senior facility in this building. Basically, this room is sort of a buffer from the day-to-day office activity. I'd entertain a motion to deny this request.
Another question, is there anything we can do in the senior center that would make it easier for them to use that for that? Is there something in the way, or is there something you need that would make it easier?
We do move the tables around to accommodate them, but if there's more than one activity going on at one time, some activity is going to suffer.
So it's scheduling?
That's really what it is.
Francine Tishman, 83 Glendale Road. What I was thinking, if you have the other activity going on in there that may be quieter, why don't you put that in here and have the aerobics in the other room, as a thought? Because I understand, if you've been to any other senior center, they just don't have one room.
Right,
They have multiple rooms for multiple activities.
that's a good thought.
Yeah.
What are the other activities?
So, for instance, to just put that out on the table, that's a perfect idea. So when we have the foot clinic, which would you rather have in this room, the foot clinic or the aerobics? Take your pick, because I can put either one in either room.
Can you change your schedule around so that you could do?
It's an all-day event, and we have activities on each day, so either way, something's gonna have to get bumped to accommodate the other activity.
Right. It's a heck of a choice.
You don't have to make a decision today if you'd like to chew on it.
Yeah, I almost think that if you can take it back and try to look at activities and see if you can do some rearranging and all that and bring it back to us.
I can do that again.
Do I hear a motion to table this?
So move.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Request is tabled. We are now going to move back into old business. The first part of the business is the 2018 operating budget. Before we start though, Bob, we also have a revamp on the warrants.
Yes.
Do you have that electronically?
Yes.
All right, then let's do this. Let's do the budget, and by the time we do the budget, we'll take a break,
Yeah.
And
this
then you
one
could
also is May
download the
1st. I
warrants
just
and we'll
didn't know
start
if there was a
again.
difference.
and that'll give everybody a
I
chance.
have
to
extra
go.
copies of the warrant, if people want paper copies as well.
Yeah, we got a couple extra up here too.
Right, but
There are some extra copies of the paper
So,
copies.
Bob, the ones in our packet were actually current as well?
Lady over here.
Because I had one in the packet May 1st, and I have mine May 1st. There's no changes there, right?
I bet there is.
There's a May 2nd because we added an article.
Okay, we don't have May
We don't
2nd.
have May 2nd.
Okay. I put them on your desk, I think.
Yeah,
got May
they'll say
1st.
May 1st.
They both say May 1st.
Yeah.
Yes.
One article that, let me see, I'll tell you which one. We just added this afternoon. Having to do with the annual.
What page?
It would be page 23. And it would be the article,
I don't, no, that's not it.
23, Article what?
That's exactly.
Would you take and make
not the
copies
one.
for
This
everybody?
doesn't
You have
have
access to it.
This doesn't have
Right,
it?
so we don't have the current one.
Of course.
I think there is.
you have the current one?
No,
In
I
the
have the
meeting,
same one John
joint
had.
We
meeting
took it out of our
was
book,
there,
though.
I'll
but,
give you two current, what?
We took it out of our folder here.
Well, there was one in the desk and there's one in the folder. They're both the same
15,
day,
20
May
of them.
1st.
I took the one on the desk and put it there, and I took the folder.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to get a copy, so I'm running copies.
Want to run some copies?
Can you run a couple copies?
Her running copies.
Just gave them all out.
She's running some copies,
We're gonna run copies. Let's go into the budget.
so we'll wait.
All right,
for-
let's go into the budget. We'll get into the warrant articles afterwards. Someone's gone to make more copies. Bob, you wish to take the lead, please?
The budget's not in here yet, right? No. Okay.
We want to hit some lights?
What you can see
Lights are on.
on the screen is the budget for fiscal 17 in the second column from the left.
Bob, you want a laser?
Sorry? Oh, yeah, good.
Would it be preferable to turn the lights off? Can you see it okay, or? If anybody wants lights off, feel free.
This is the budget for fiscal 17, current year. These are the requests from the departments for fiscal 18. This is the recommendation of the Finance Committee on April the 4th, on April the 24th, I'm sorry. This is the recommendation of the Finance team on 5/1. There have been 4 meetings in the last week to address many of the issues that we have, including priorities of the selectmen, priorities of the school committee, and certainly some issues with departments.
That's
So
the
we're
one
trying
I'm
to
looking at.
fit all that together in a fair way. What I did was, since the financial team was essentially the FinCom and the representation through me and department heads of the BOS, I took the BOS's recommendation and consolidated it here, because this is the most recent budget proposal that is before the Board of Selectmen, prior to any amendments. These are just the comparisons, 17 versus 18,
This is different.
dollar amount. These are the, again, dollar amounts for the finance team,
This is different than
finance
that,
committee, and then you have the percentages over here of change that are requested and suggested. As I said, series of meetings have taken place during the last week. There were 2 meetings last week, Monday, Tuesday, where the budget proposals were considered by the finance committee, the finance team, and the board of selectmen. Some disagreement, obviously. And meetings were held this week as well. I think it's fair to say that one of the fundamental issues has been funding for the public schools, particularly the Norris Elementary School. The original proposal came out with level funding. Level funding would require, you can widen that column there. Level funding would result, we are told, in reductions of 3 employees, I assume teachers, at the Norris School. Selectmen were certainly, did not greet that with any kind of acceptance. They said you have to work something out to the satisfaction of the schools. So what happened last night was a fairly long session and some rather severe reductions in the spending on the town side. To the point where I think there's going to be some concern if the cuts are so deep that you're going to find a need for more money somewhere during the year. But nevertheless, the goal was to provide a shift of $100,000 from town departments to the Norris School budget. Do you have that up there? Yeah, you'll see that the Norris School budget was originally 3.9, and now the finance team recommendation is $100,000 more, which would permit the contracts to be implemented with raises and all employees to be retained, and what they call a current services budget. And all the services that are currently provided would be funded through the most recent proposal, adding $100,000, in effect shifting $100,000 from the town side to the school side. In addition to that, in the warrant, and this was extensively discussed, in the warrant there was still is, a proposal for an additional $100,000 by way of a general override, which would be earmarked for the Norris School. Haven't gone very far into that or what those funds would be spent for. The original budget provided for the hiring of 3 additional staff people at the school. But as it stands right now, before this warrant is executed by the selectmen, there is an article there that would provide for a general override of the tax cap targeted exclusively to the Norris School. And that's where it stands. That's where it stands. I'm sure there's some continuing disagreements, but the work of the last couple of days especially has been oriented towards addressing what came out last week, namely a budget for the schools that would require several reductions of staff. Anything more? Is that fair enough? For the description of what happened? Sure. Okay.
Michael Rosenberg, Chair of the Finance Committee, 144 East Street. Just a couple items here, and I know it's semantics, but column T, so the 424 meeting was a meeting of the finance team. It consisted of the Finance Committee, the collector, the accountant, and member of the Select Board and the town administrator. So that is not the Finance Committee recommendation, that is the finance team recommendation. That is what came out of that meeting. In regards to the level funding, it was originally suggested by myself that we start the budget process with level funding. When the budget process started, when you compared revenue projections versus requests, we were at a $570,000 budget deficit. Revenue had gone up 3%, expenses had gone up 6%. Obviously, there was an issue. The original FY18 request included increases across the board for all departments. You could go down any list. There was really no limitation of, or no direction of how high they should project their FY18 budget. There was no stay within 2%, stay within 3%. So it was a budget party. Everyone asked for everything. It also included some of the Board of Selectmen goals, which included the second shift, town admin, or police and fire admin, and there was other extra programs and things in there, funding of different commissions and things. When we met Monday, and it was suggested to level fund, I think it should be noted that we left the meeting knowing we needed to look into what was required at the school, and we left the meeting knowing that we needed to look into what was required at the library. So we are on the finance committee, the finance team, we do our best, but we also like to defer to the ones closest to those numbers. So after we level funded, we came very close to a balanced budget. We came in Tuesday for a meeting with the select board and found that the budget had been shuffled. Funds had been taken out of vocational tuition. Revenues had been increased due to good accounting practices. You know, they found more revenues. Expenses had been decreased. Those added funds were used to fund a second shift for half a year for the fire department, along with contractual and requested wage increases for town department heads. Those funds were found, and what that essentially did was pigeonhole the town into finding money to keep the school at level services, which, if you've watched the select board meetings or been at, we have been reminding everyone of this for over 2 months, that the school is going to need to be level serviced, not level funded. I was taken aback, frankly, when the email was sent to the school that they would be level funded, because that was never the agreement. And, you know, at our Tuesday night meeting, even after we went through all of that information, I stood up here and I looked at everyone and said, you need to reach out to the school and make sure they have what they need to be funded properly so they don't have to reduce services. Following that, a communication was sent to them saying they were level funded. There was no dialogue between the school and the town at that point. And it created this. That's why everyone's here. You know, the finance committee does meet with the school, their school committee. We have conversations. We try to keep our eye and our thumb on what's going on in town. We made those suggestions because we knew it would be an issue. And I can't understand why the attention wasn't given to the school department after we advised everyone of this. You know, they need the money or else they lose teachers and the children lose programs. And we've advised everyone on this. So, after Tuesday, obviously conversations happened. We met yesterday, like Bob said. We went through and we stripped budgets. I mean, they are bare bones. You know, multiple departments have been affected. There will be contentions not only with the school department, but with other departments in town. It was not a good evening. It was very long. It's very difficult. It's not something that garners friends for us on the finance committee, to be frank, because we make the difficult decision. We left it with a $5,300 deficit, which was balanced this afternoon. The costs were split between two departments. They were split between the Board of Health wage line, and a smaller portion came from the veterans benefits. You know, at this point, the school does have what it needs for level services, but this process is not, it's not what we thought was going to happen last Monday when we left the meeting. And so it's been a very difficult process, and to be frank, the finance committee stepped back from making the final decisions on where the funds came from because we did not think it was appropriate for us to choose which departments reduce their wages when we weren't even asking to go in that direction to begin with. So I would say the majority of this is a finance team budget. You know, the final decisions on balancing come from the select board. You know, it is balanced. I'm sure there'll be lots of other questions, but that is our take of what happened. Is there any questions for me?
So did you have a different version of this? Because the way you talk, you had a different version. Because you said that you had
So what we did,
numbers and then now they're changed because the school got an email.
so last Monday, we took our first crack at the budget. We level funded basically everything. We included 2% wage increases for the staff as it's, you know, as it was last year, as it was this year. And we left it with a caveat that the school and the library need to be revisited. At that point, there was a $12,000 surplus in the balance. So when we came in Tuesday, the budget had changed. There was an ad hoc meeting Tuesday afternoon. The finance committee was not invited to, but the numbers had changed from there. So when we walked in Tuesday, we're obviously taken aback because the work we did Monday was kind of, it was a moot point because then we were left with hurdles to get over.
So you had a balanced budget on Monday and on Tuesday it had changed?
So you could say we had an almost balanced draft budget, but we knew there were caveats and things that needed to be looked into with other departments. So it wasn't something we could put before you and say, this is it, sign off.
Right.
You know, we knew we had to look in those two departments. The library funding, if it's not done properly, they lose certification, and with the school, we needed to do research into what was needed, so.
So there was a lot of changes made by the time you started on Tuesday?
I would have to say a dozen, you know, maybe more. I don't know
Yeah.
the number.
Okay.
Yeah, Shannon, Shannon,
Yep, this is the meeting that you people had on that morning? That afternoon? Okay.
Shannon, the budget that was proposed to us on Tuesday, last Tuesday, that came out with their level funded budget, had the schools at level funding at that point. And I was under the understanding that it was gonna be a working session. We were gonna look at the budget, see what we could move around. We looked at it and we saw the Smith Vocational projection as a possible source of revenue. We discussed about maybe funding the second shift, But as we discussed throughout that meeting, we decided to try to delay the start of the second shift, and let's see what comes in with ambulance revenue and fund it for the second half starting January 1st, 2018. So the money that we were proposing to take out of the Smith vocational, we didn't. I mean, we figured that we would be able to fund the ambulance with the ambulance receipts that we're going to get the first half of the next fiscal year. So, and in further discussion, we decided that maybe we'll take that money. And then Mike said we ought to really maybe allocate that back towards the school. And that's what we were thinking of doing tonight. So we didn't really want to strip any money from the schools at that point. It was just a thought. And then the idea came out, we fund it through the ambulance receipts. So that's what I believe we were talking about.
And Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, I was at the Finance Committee meeting, that level funded budget with 2%, that stripped away any of the contract negotiations that we had done up to that point, correct?
Correct.
Right, so we have contracts that we have signed and sealed, and that the proposed budget from the Finance Committee stripped that back, which legally we can't do, so that wasn't a real, we had well, we
It's
can't.
subject to appropriation.
Right.
Well, the
First year they're subject to appropriation. After you go through 1 year, then it is a legally
Right.
binding agreement that we can't strip.
Technically true, but I mean, it's in bad faith that you negotiate with somebody, give them a contract, then strip it back, so.
But it's bad accounting and fiscal management to hand out larger raises without looking at the larger picture too, right?
Well, no, part of the issue is we've got to keep good people in those department head positions. If we don't, we turn them over and we lose them, so we've got to figure out a way to do that.
So were there particular ones, or was it everyone who has a contract, all of the raises were denied, or only some of them, or?
In that budget, they were all stripped out and put at 2%.
Correct.
Okay.
As what was originally known to us. We were aware of one of the contract negotiations, and the increase there, and then we found out about another, and then we found out about another negotiation ongoing, which led to department heads changing their salary lines to include raises. Essentially,
And all of those have what been brought back down and then just added the 2% in?
no, they're still in there. We've made recommendations to reduce all the raises across the board at a certain percentage. We've tried to make a fair and equitable decision in regards to those. We're not going to be the ones to sit back and say this department should go down, this department should go up, because I don't think it's something our committee believes in doing in general, is these large scale raises. So, questions?
Okay, so now, is there anything further you want to go with on this, Bob? Any specific areas?
Well, I think we have a budget that is in balance, that has shifted some funding, half the funding that the schools asked for, over to them. It's $100,000. I mean, it's a significant amount of money. And I guess the only other thing I could just give you my perspective, after the level funded budgets came out on Monday night last week, I think there was general consensus that something needed to be done. Charlie called me the next morning, probably at 10 o'clock, and said, this is not something, that we can live with. And that was the cause of that long meeting in the afternoon to begin a process of further cutting of town department budgets in the interest of providing more funds for the schools. I mean, the controversy, I guess, is not going to surprise anybody. There are department heads who have received contractual increases, largely after showing the Board of Selectmen that their salaries were well below the marketplace in the region. And so, from the point of view of certainly have some priorities that we don't all agree on, but I know what the selectmen's priorities are. I am hearing, a lot from the finance committee, and certainly we've heard recently from the school committee, and we are at the intersection of a lot of cross pressures. And to sum it up, I think an effort has been made to try and be at least minimally accommodating to the various interests that you've heard about, particularly with the second shift. I mean, they were going to do a second shift for the entire fiscal 18. Now it is proposed only from January until June 30th, and so forth. So a lot of the shifting around has happened in order to try and find, as I said, minimal accommodation for the interests that have been expressed by the various town departments and municipal boards.
We have an individual, I suspect, wants to speak about the school department.
I do.
Typically, when we do this with just the finance committee, we don't have the audience coming in and presenting.
But you're saying things about the school committee that's not true, and that's what I don't want it to get out.
If you let me finish,
Okay.
you might be on the right side of this.
All right.
She's also a member of the finance team.
I was too, but I was told to be quiet. Well, 2 months ago.
She's a member.
Okay, let's get beyond this, yeah.
But what I'm saying is I'd like to let her speak for 5 minutes so that she can
Yeah.
present her side. Please.
Okay. So I wanted to address a couple things. The mention that the school came forward and that this feeling that we got something and we came and we wanted 200,000, you found us 100, and we should be very thankful. And I don't mean that to sound disrespectful. However, every department in this budget got their 2% increases, contractual 2% increases, without a question. Now, we heard Mike say that he thought that was happening. The level funded does not ever have any 2% increases that are contractual. So we started off below every other department. You brought us up to where every other department is, but we are not ahead of the game at all. We are not getting all sorts of things that other departments conceivably are getting because they don't have to line item budgetize like we do. So you guys can look at every single thing we have. All every other department gives you is salaries, expenses, this. So I feel as though we've been asked to scrape as minimal as we can, to the point that we ration copy paper at school, true. And we have no curriculum supplies. These sort of things have occurred because we've had to scrape, come to the bare minimum. And then we're supposed to feel grateful that we got the 100,000 that was not in the budget on Tuesday. And that's very upsetting, especially because I've come to this department and to these people, you guys, many times to explain to you what's going on at the school. I feel like Norris is always the last to always get anything, and we have to, and it's just to the point where it's just getting absurd, and it's just not fair. I will say that I right now, I think the biggest problem is we operate in these little vacuums. So you may have negotiated these little contracts and all these different things, and now you're looking at something that's completely fiscally irresponsible to be increasing people by 30%, 40%, 19%, 20%. We don't have a person at our school that ever gets that. So I'm very frustrated at that, but that's a town thing, so I will talk about that some other time. But as far as the school's concerned, I want you to realize that this 100,000, all it does is keep what we have today. So we still don't have curriculum, we still don't have supplies, we still don't have any of those things that we need to operate a school. The gem of this town that brings all these people here. And it makes me so angry that I've stood up here many, many times, and now again, once again, I had to call this a special meeting to say, why aren't we getting our 2% that everybody else is getting? And that's not fair. And I took time out of my day to be there. I have a full-time job. So, I feel like, once again, the school is always the last one. And you took out of vocational to fund raises. Like, you took out of a line item that was for vocational. Like, it's just, I don't know. The shell's got to stop, and we have to start funding the school.
May I ask first, would you introduce yourself?
Erin Kuchar, head of the school committee, 49 Coleman Road.
Thank you. Are we entertaining a motion to accept this budget? Our problem is we have to accept.
As written?
As written.
Yeah, no. I vote no.
Well, we haven't even had a motion.
Well, I'm just letting you know. I vote no.
Hi, I'm not speaking for the school department. I know that many of you guys know that I'm a huge proponent, but that's not my question. I have a hearing impairment, so I just wanted to make sure I understood something. The finance team, and many of you guys also know me, I'm the budget director for an urban school district, and I've spent my entire career in municipal finance and budgeting.
And your name is?
Sharon Powell, 9 Riverdale Road.
Thank you.
So let me get did I understand it correctly that the finance team didn't include one member of the finance committee?
No.
There were no members of the finance committee on the finance team?
No, so the finance team is comprised of the finance committee, the assessor, the accountant, the treasurer, and then members of the select board are liaisons and others that go, the town administrator.
Because I've served on the finance committee, so like I've been a member of that. But the finance team in V, column V, no, like none of the 5 members of the finance team revised that budget?
That is true as it applies to column T on 4.
Yeah.
Thank you. So as it applies to column T, no member of the finance committee were part of revising that budget. Okay.
Well, wait a minute.
And then-
No, that's not accurate. Column T should read fiscal 18.
Oh, column V.
What
Column
column?
V.
V.
So the finance team that revised the budget did not have one member from the finance committee? Okay, thank you.
No,
I'll
no, that's not true.
Okay,
So, the finance team met last Monday.
right.
There was an ad hoc meeting Tuesday afternoon between essentially the finance team with no finance committee invitation. No one was invited there.
But
So
the
the
finance,
budget was modified that day,
right, with
and then
no,
the finance team met again that evening to see the budget that had been modified that day.
to see it, but not to touch it. So you recommended a budget as the finance committee, and then the finance team revised that budget without
No,
finance
that's the wrong
committee.
heading. That's why that heading needs to be changed.
Which
T
heading?
needs to be changed to FY18 finance team
Instead
recommended.
of finance committee, it should be finance
Oh,
team.
okay, so it's transposed on the screen. I got you.
No, they're both should be
They're both
finance
team?
team. T and V.
Okay.
Let them change it, maybe they'll make more sense.
So 2 of the people on the finance team that ultimately revised the budget are on the short list for raises, correct?
Is that what you wanted?
Correct.
Okay. And then I'm just wondering, because I've served in finance forever. So like I'm concerned as a town person, it sounds like we're making a lot of structural changes to the operating budget. These are not one-time expenses that you're proposing. So I'm just wondering about the long-term fiscal solvency of this town and the fiscal cliff that could potentially be created with this budget. Next year, you have to sustain second shift. You have to sustain these recommendations for raises. How are you going to do that? I know, because I've worked in municipal government forever, revenues are not going to be there year after year. We have a level revenue source from A&F. I'm sorry, I have a cold. Revenues are not keeping pace with expenses. So how are you going to sustain this? I mean, FY19 is going to be a bear. How are we going to sustain this? Long-term fiscal solvency. These are operating changes. These are not one-time expenses.
If somebody wants to come to the podium and speak, please, just try not to repeat what someone else said.
No problem. I don't understand all that fiscal stuff. Linda Brosted, Pleasant Street. I'm a special ed teacher at Norris School, and I just want to say what this fiscal information looks like when it trickles down to my classroom. I service 34 special ed students a day in my classroom, and my $200 classroom supply means for each student I get $5.88 a year. That's pencils, that's tissues, that's notebooks. I have no curriculum money. And that's all I've got to say. $5.88, pencils, notebooks, no curriculum.
John Broder, 3 Madeline Way. It looks to me like there are a few people who are benefiting from this budget much more drastically than others. Now, I was in the professional world for the last 20 years, and I know there's certain people who get higher raises because they're more, not important, but let's simplify it by say they're good people that you want to hold on to. But some of these raises, what I'm curious, are we changing the town administrator position? Is it jumping to 60 hours a week from 40 hours a week?
There it is, right there.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty massive. If I ever got that raise in 1 year, I'd be a pretty happy guy, and I got a degree in engineering.
You know,
The problem is when we look at the finances of this and hiring somebody, that's actually a low number compared to what they're getting out there now.
yeah. The last town
But
administrator.
what's the hourly? My point is what's the hourly? There's a lot of town administrator jobs that are full-time positions.
Right.
And if when you're in the world of business, you have to look at what's my total wage.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take into account your benefits, your amount of vacation, your hourly salary. It isn't just an hourly salary, and this is what they make. Someone may make $100,000 a year, but they get no benefits.
Right.
They're a paid consultant. And if somebody isn't, and I'm just curious, are we talking, how many hours a week is the town administrator?
These are exempt positions, as you know, so it's not how many hours a week. It's a minimum hours a week, and they work whatever. I mean, I know Bob being interim, and when Heather was here, 7 days a week there's communication and work going on. What we're trying to do is find somebody that's going to be a right fit for the town, that's a professional that can help lead the town forward. We've had a couple where we've gone up and down.
I know,
it doesn't help us.
I know, and it didn't help us at all.
Exactly.
So why, the biggest thing is prove to us, get some businesses in here to us that you're worth that kind of money. Because really what we need to build our revenue is commercial business. Attract businesses here. Figure out a way to grow the town budget, not to suck it out of the town budget. To me, I see somebody getting a $26,000 raise, but we're taking veterans' benefits and reducing it by $10,000.
I don't agree with that part.
You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, and the town accountant is getting a pretty hefty raise as well.
I think
Are they doing any more work? Again, the veterans, I'm not a veteran, but I appreciate my veterans, and the fact that we're taking money out to give it to 2 people and our students. I'm a parent. At the beginning of the year, if you saw the list of things that I have to supply to, I went to Catholic school. My parents didn't have to supply that. We paid for it. But I know all my friends did not have to give the list that's like 3 pages long to supply our schools. And it's ridiculous. It's a little embarrassing that we need to do this. We do it as parents. We do it, but we have a lot of people who don't have to worry about that. And when their kids went to the schools, never had to worry about it. The money was there. And it's just not there anymore.
I think that's one of the reasons we're entertaining doing a override, so that there'd be general tax base and go directly to the school.
Yeah.
It's not a cure. I'm not saying it's a cure.
No, I'm
but
not
it's
saying it is either,
approach.
but I know what someone was saying. A raise is the gift that keeps on giving, because if you can get a $27,000 raise, that's great for this year. It's awesome. But every year, 2% of $90,000 is a lot more than 2% of $60,000.
Can I say something? Go ahead. So, I really see what you're saying. I have 5 kids, so I know all about the list that comes home.
The list.
Yeah, so I can appreciate that completely. Teachers, I'm all over that too. The ones that you're pointing out, we don't have a town administrator, so we are gonna probably have to throw a little bit more money to get somebody who knows what they're doing. Accountant, yes, more workload, I know, because I was with that writing of the contract of all that. The ones that really stick out to me are the ones that have no contracts, that are thousands of dollars of increase. Like I see a $12,000. I see a
I
4,900.
picked the
see
easiest
a-
ones, obviously. I picked the
Lot of
big,
them
I
in
picked the
there?
biggest.
There's a lot of them in there.
Yeah, yeah.
Lot.
And again, if we have to have good people, yeah, and
And
if
I'm-
somebody
I'm with you
gets
on that.
$12,000, but they're able to take that $12,000 and make it go $30,000, great. You know what I mean? Because there are people that I've seen in this town who've been able to do that.
Exactly.
They can take $1 and make it into $5, and that's what we need.
That's the goal, because if you try to hire somebody, a town administrator, since we're picking on that, town administrator, $50,000, and say, we'll give you more if you can do grants, you can do this. The person you're getting for $50,000 has no experience. We've gone through that. If you get somebody at $80,000, and part of the goals is you have to achieve these, and you track that, and they don't do it, then you go elsewhere. I mean,
Then
I
if
have,
if that is the goal, then that's different.
yeah.
Government doesn't seem to work that way.
It's the
Government
chicken-
seems to be the gift that keeps on giving as well,
Well,
where you
that
get in
person-
and you can't get out.
But if that person comes on for $80,000 and generates another $100,000,
Great.
it's well worth the money, and they
Definitely.
get their 2% next year and they go on. Then
Correct.
you take the next position and you do the same thing. But we've been upside down on these for years, and I manage a lot of managers, and I know, and the state doesn't pay that much sometimes. So when you put out $50,000, that's what you're getting.
No,
But you need here, and that's our goal, and the town administrator committee is only going to send us the applicants that meet those goals. We're going to put a lot of pressure on this person. I think Heather, when she left, she brought us from here to here, but we need to go here now, and we know, I don't think $80,000 is going to get us here on a town administrator, but, you know, we've
no,
got to
I
find out who's
understand.
there.
I do understand that in this day and age, $90,000 for a top-level
Yeah.
executive is
So
not
we're
a lot of
trying
money.
to up the game of the town, even on some of the other positions, the elected positions. You know, we have good people that are doing good things, collecting back taxes and keeping up and putting the revenue in. But those people, you hear every once in a while, looking for another job. If we have to start all over down here, you know, we're in the tubes. We used to have, I don't know if she's in the room, we used to have a treasurer a long time ago that we were so far behind on collecting the back taxes, it was like $250,000, if I remember right. That's a lot of money that we don't get because somebody didn't know how to go after it. Treasurer that
No
came
doubt.
in, went after it, brought it up, and we're staying pretty current. So that person makes the money back, and that's the type of person we're looking for.
Yeah,
And I understand 100%. We don't want to take away from the schools. That's why we're,
Yeah, again, you know, the biggest thing is when you look at, you know, I heard, was it Bob say that, you know, we gave $100,000, that's a pretty good amount. $100,000 on a $4 million budget,
yeah,
that's less than a percentage.
yeah. And it's just keeping them, their head above
That's
water.
not a good amount.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no one that can say that's good math. If everyone's getting 2%, sorry.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
It'll be midnight, and we'll still be debating these things, you know.
Thanks for listening.
oh,
All right,
appreciate it,
try.
appreciate it.
Charles, can I comment?
Absolutely.
Comment on the town administrator. First of all, anyone who gets that salary will not be needed. I work here 18 hours a week as an interim, and there is a recruitment process that's underway. I think the dilemma for the town is, I know what the selectmen would like for a permanent town administrator. There's a marketplace. There's a marketplace for town administrators, just as there is for school superintendents and others. And we had two professional consulting firms who do nothing, well, one of them does nothing but recruit town administrators. That's all they do. And the selectmen asked them, what do you think Southampton's going to have to pay to find someone not out of school and 24 years old, not, you know, a former selectman or a former state representative, but somebody who is trained and experienced, maybe 5 years at least experience. They said $90,000. I could see eyes popping out when that number came out. And it's a dilemma for the town. I don't have an answer for you. I'm just saying that there is a marketplace, and if the town wants to go in that direction, that's what they're going to have to pay.
I understand that. I agree with you. If there is this much experience, this kind of education, you get this kind of salary. There's not a lot of people who go, I could get 90. I'm gonna go
Don't,
do that.
yeah.
You want to flick the lights back on? No one's looking at the screen anymore. Thank you. Oh, hi, everyone. Hi, Vicki.
So, many of you might not know me. I am the town accountant, and my raise looks like the biggest one on the board. My name is Vicki Morrow, and I live at Pomeroy Meadow Road. I've been here for 5 years, and it looks like a big number because I'm currently way underpaid, one, versus the gentleman who had my job before me, who got $40,000 for working 3 days. I do not even make $40,000 for 4 days, plus all these meetings worth of work. Who do you think did all that up there? That was me. So it looks like a huge amount of money. I'm also currently underpaid from all the other department heads in this town. $12,000 to $20,000. I do just as much work as everybody else. I came here out of the goodness of my heart to say I want to do something good for my town, to be able to take my experience that I've had for 25 years doing accounting and help the town that I live in. I think I've done a darn good job of that, and I'm just asking for people to not look at it as if I'm getting this huge raise. I just want to get to the level where everybody else in this town is working at. And I don't want to do it on the back of the schools. People who know me know that I am a huge proponent of the schools. My husband is a teacher. He gets crapped on every day at Holyoke High School and gets a 0.5% raise for doing 10 times more work than probably half the people in this room. So I am a proponent of the schools. I don't necessarily want to take it out of the schools, but I have to fight for myself because nobody else is going to do it. So I just want you to understand where that number is coming from. It took me 1.5 years to get to where we need to be, and if you decide to take it out, great, but I'll continue to do my job because that's the kind of person that I am, but it's just heartbreaking that this has to come to this.
I'm going to close public comments with this right now.
So I actually have been waiting for a while, so if you could just, I'll be very quick. My name is Judy Taylor. I'm a town resident. I have 3 girls that have gone through Norris School. I want to thank you for your time. And I just want to mention that the school is remarkable. I'm not telling you something you don't know, but it's a travesty that in such a proud town that our school, for per pupil expenditures in the state, we are the second from the bottom. That is such an embarrassment, and people need to figure this out, how to fix this and to sustain it, because our children deserve more. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Again, I'm departing at some point.
Quicker than he thinks.
Hopefully not recently.
And I have no interest to say something to you that is not true.
I just wanted to clarify.
I said this afternoon in the meeting. I think once I'm retired, I've been in 4 towns so I've had a lot of experience, I think 7 altogether in my career. Most towns, you encounter department heads who aren't so good. You might have, if you have 8, you might have 5 who are good and 3 who are not so good. And the selectmen say, first thing I want you to do is see if you can get rid of this department because they aren't doing they aren't doing the good work, okay? I've heard that a lot. What I can say to the residents here is that all of the department heads in this building and outside this building, your police chief, your fire chief, your highway superintendent, and your department heads here are capable and competent people who are doing good work for you. Now, I know we don't like government and don't trust government, but this organization runs in a certain disjointed way, but nevertheless, it runs very well. And I know if I ask for information about financial matters, I get it and it's accurate. Now, follow up on Vicki. Not yet making $40,000. There are administrative assistants, there are secretaries who are getting paid more than that in an average company. That is ridiculously low. When I left Ipswich and retired in 2012, I'm sorry, we were paying our town accountant $110. Now this is a different region, the cost of living is lower, but it's not half the cost of living in eastern Massachusetts. So that's really the difference. It is a sizable increase, but if you look at the actual salary, the salary is ridiculously low and needs to change. And I can certainly say that the people who are getting it are not getting it just for coasting along. The people who are getting it are doing good work for this town.
I just wanted to clarify, Vicki, you're doing an amazing job. And that I wasn't picking on anybody's salaries. I was legitimately concerned about long-term solvency and building operating increases and how we're going to sustain them. I also I just wish that people that were possibly getting increases, ones that were above the 2%, maybe they could have excused themselves from revising the budget process, because then it could have looked a little bit optically, it wouldn't have looked so skewed. I mean, I know that professionally speaking, having done a lot in the field and negotiating labor contracts for unions for many years, usually you would excuse yourself from that process to say, you know what, I have a pretty sizable increase, my contract is up for negotiation, I'm going to excuse myself from revising this budget because optically it doesn't look good, and it's just ethically it's not really the way to go.
I think their answer is...
To respond to you on that, the town gets about 3% new revenue a year. 3%.
Oh, no, I know.
Any requests that go above 3%, departmental requests, are problematic. I mean, with all respect to the school budget that we're talking about, the request this year is 5.3. If we accommodate 5.3, somebody has to get squeezed.
I'm not fighting for...
It has been
I didn't mention the schools, did I?
I'm not talking picking on them, but if any department goes above 3%,
I didn't even, I mean, I would love, I'm a huge proponent.
creating the conditions of a financial crisis.
But the schools are not going to be the driver of whatever financial crisis is a result of this budget, because the schools got a fraction of a percentage. That's not going to be the driver.
I think you two are going from making statements to creating a debate.
Right. Well, I've just never seen a finance committee recommendation not be the recommendation, and then having the budget get revised in a vacuum.
Yeah, just a couple of comments. Trying to store them up while people are talking. When we're negotiating contracts with people, they don't just come up and throw a figure on the table. Well, actually, they do. And they say, I deserve this. And we say, that's fine, but prove it to us. So we make them go through. I mean, can I use you as an example? Yeah. Well, wait a minute. Okay. Vicki. Yeah, we said, show us where you should be. And she came back with a roughly 30 different towns, approximate size, budgets and all that. They had minimums and maximums, and she was nowhere near anywhere in the high end of the scales. And we make everybody prove that, because what we're trying to do is pay them reasonably and get good people in here and keep them. And the other thing I was thinking is, Finance Committee works with numbers. That's their job. They work with numbers. Schools have their budget and they want to be whole or above. The town highway departments, fire departments, they have their own budgets. But what we have to do is, how much money do we have, how do we spread it around, and how are we as fair as possible in keeping quality staff? So we have 5 people here that have to take all of these. You don't agree over here, you don't agree over here, and we understand it, but we have to make the money fit in the best way that we feel is possible. So we don't want to slight anybody in this override for $100,000. If you own a $250,000 house, it's $3,750 on the budget. We hope we can get that passed and give the money to the school. Hopefully nobody says, I don't want to spend $3,750 a year more on the schools. So if this group shows up at the town meeting and people talk like this, I think we got a good shot at it. But if you don't show up, we won't. People show up, people listen.
Heather Pellegrini, Crooked Ledge Road. I'm also on the Finance Committee. I just wanted to give my feedback. This has been my first go-around during the budget process. And just for the record, we attempted to alter some of the department head raises, we were cutting everywhere. We were looking deep. We're taking $500 in copies. We're taking $1,000 in stamps. Never once would anyone from the Board of Selectmen acquiesce that any of those numbers could be even 2% reduction from some of those large increases. So I just wanted to go on record as saying that we did try to have some of those lowered.
Thank you, Heather. All right, now. Every time I say now, somebody jumps up.
Stop saying it.
I'm Heather Broder, and I live at 3 Madeline Way, and I just wanted to quickly say that in black and white, this might work out and it might be balanced, but when you see it in living color in a classroom with kids that don't have the supplies and kids that can't get the support that they need, it's way different. And I understand, you know, I'm an accountant as well, and I understand the numbers, and they look pretty on paper, but when you see them in black and white, when you see them in living color, it makes a big difference. And the school cannot constantly be the last priority, because you know what happens? Then people don't want to move into this town. You know what I mean? They're going to go, the school's crap, they don't get the funding they need, so I'm out of here. I already know a handful of my friends that have pulled their kids from Norris because of that reason. And I think that's sad, because 10 years ago, everyone wanted to come here, and everyone wanted to go to Norris, and now it's the last priority, and it's getting out, and it's in the paper, and it's, you know, in the news, and it's not good. And we can't always put the school last. This is the future of this town. And you know what happens in the vote is the people that their kids are done, I don't care now, but you know what? Someone paid for your kids. And it needs to continue, and we need to care as a community about these kids and making sure that they get what they need to prosper. Or else, you know, the town's just going to go downhill, and it's not going to be good for any of us.
I got to say, none of us ever put the school last. We're always looking to make sure it's at least what it was and trying to get more money. But the question is, if you give an extra $200,000 to the school, do you cut the fire department or do you cut the police? The people, in my opinion, don't just come to town for the school. They come to town for the education, but they come because we have good fire safety. They come because we have a safe town with the police. It's a package deal. We have great highway department where they plow the street. If we don't have that package, it doesn't matter how good the schools are, because our homes are being robbed because we don't have police. You got to have a good package. So who would you suggest, rhetorical, who would you suggest we take $200,000 from to give to somebody else? That's what we have to decide, how we do that. And trust us, we think everybody should have the money, but we don't have it. It's the people that you get out there and get the 2.5 override. It never passes, you know. No. So it's not this group. This group, I think, is all on board. It's the other people out there who don't want to pay.
You guys recommended that to the school. You
Pardon?
just said that
Come to the speaker.
but you recommended that the school get their $200,000 from that. So
Right.
that's not fair.
Well, we're going to support it because $200,000 is $75 a year.
But if I didn't call that meeting and ask you guys to get together to talk about the fact that you were level funding the school and not, you were going to make us go to try to get the $200,000. If we didn't get it, we lose 3 teachers.
No, we'd come back and we'd have to revisit the budget. Yeah, you're right. Sorry.
The podium.
So you understand, one, the selectmen have to take a vote to establish this for town meeting. 2, the key word here is town meeting. You're going to debate this and vote on this at town meeting. So whatever is on this budget, you as residents of the town, and I better speak closer to the microphone or I'll get yelled at, you as residents of the town are going to be the final say on this.
So call your friends to come out to vote, because we never have the numbers that vote. Never.
And I don't understand why they hear you but never hear me.
Because I'm louder than you.
Tammy Walunas, 298 College Highway. You know I can't get away with not coming up here.
I was beginning
Welcome,
to worry.
Tammy.
The 16th is going to be a big meeting. And all of the parents that are here are missing out on things. I highly recommend the parents tell your coach you can't do the game that night. Tell this meeting that you can't go to that meeting, because you need to be at this meeting on the 16th. There was almost 40 articles to be talked about. I think it's gone down, looking at the new revised. But that's a lot to get through in one night.
It's not going to happen in one night in my mind.
So you need 2 nights. Let your soccer and your baseball coaches, dance. Your kids have to stay home for one day so the parents can show up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm closing comments. The board needs to take a vote on this budget. Do I hear a motion to accept this budget as written?
Did we go down through the whole multiple pages, or we're just on the first page, right?
We can, if there's a question that the board has on anything. It seems to me the key is the school and the
So
page.
let's go to the bottom page and see. So let's
Bottom
just-
page?
Yeah, so this budget is balanced, is what you're proposing? And what line item, what number are we, what letter are we voting on? You're saying V?
Bob, you're the one who put this together.
Just asking questions.
501, finance team, 501.
Column V. I just want to make sure we're voting on,
You're out of balance $340.
Yeah.
That was the portion that
yeah.
we discussed taking out of veterans benefits.
Yeah, that's,
So we move to accept this budget with the modification of withdrawing the $300-something out of veterans' expenses?
but it looks like we've already withdrawn $5,000 out of veterans benefits.
On top of the 10 that was already taken out.
Right. I mean, that's just, I don't like a lot of these changes.
I don't like any of these changes.
Yeah.
Well, what did Jerry give you for veterans? That's the number that, I mean, I can tell you about what that is. It's the number of benefits that are, I mean, the number of veterans that are living in town that are eligible for certain.
No, I understand what it is. I just don't, I don't want to cut it.
They've
Yeah.
already,
Yeah.
the veterans benefits, we get reimbursed 75% from the state. The next
The next year.
the next year. Currently, we've only spent $17,000, and year to date, we have 2 more months left, and one person has dropped off of that list of the original $17,000.
This is kind of like new growth. You throw a number up the wall and see if it sticks.
I think there's 3 people currently
Yeah.
that are getting veterans benefits.
But you don't know how many
But
are
we
gonna
don't know. It could be someone else moves into town, but currently, that's where we're at.
So if we have more veterans moving to town, they need the services, and we don't have enough funding, can we adjust it in January?
We can.
Because I don't, as long as we can adjust it and give the folks what they need, that's fine.
Yeah, I think you nickel and dime the wrong people
Yeah.
on this, really. I mean, I don't even know why the veterans benefits is even a question in the budget.
Well, it's because we can adjust it later on.
No, I know, but I don't know why it's ever been touched, to be honest with you.
Well, because currently, there's $35,000 in the budget.
Yeah.
There's $35,000 in the budget currently for 17. We're only going to maybe use 20 for this year. So why would you budget 30
Yeah,
if you're going to only need 20?
yeah,
But
which makes sense.
to fit the need of,
It's just right sizing it based on experience.
based on actual.
So Charlie, so I had another question here.
Yes, sir.
Column V at that number,
Yeah.
that, it's not level funded, that's level services at this point for the schools.
Schools?
Yeah.
Yes, it has the 100,000 that they needed to avoid.
Okay.
So I'll maintain the services as they
I'm
are.
just trying to be clear on exactly what column I'm voting on and,
Yeah.
The one that says 501 is.
Bob, you got the laser.
yeah, letter V. Got it.
This is the column here,
Just,
501.
So where's that $300 and something coming out of? You're gonna do veterans and,
well, no. I mean, it doesn't mean anything as far as the dollar amounts, but
Yeah.
just because it's coming out of the veterans, I think we should just take it out of the postage account, and because it's just like hitting somebody when they're down, saying the
Exactly,
veterans,
I
you know?
mean-
Let's just take it from the postage account. I mean, it's semantics, but it just, I just don't like it.
The group were sitting around the table, looking at places to cut. Vicki had the most up-to-date reports of expenditures. And one of the decisions that was made, or all the decisions that were made, usually were made in comparison with where we are to date. So if there's a budget for 20 and we were only at 10, and there seemed to be a pattern that we were certainly putting in a funding that was too much, then those are the places where the decisions were made to cut.
I think we understand that. We're just playing with that $300 and,
Okay.
you know.
So where's it coming out of?
I mean, I'd say we take it out.
Take it out of postage, okay, so that 300.
So do I hear a
So
motion?
I have one more question before you go on with your motions. So, since we made contracts that included raises, those have to go through.
Well, again, at town meeting,
Well, proposing, we're bringing it to the town meeting and let them vote on it.
they're in the budget here now.
Yep.
One
And this
that's,
is just to bring to town meeting and then they vote on it?
they have
Yeah,
a
that's what
right
you're saying.
to line item it out. One thing that's not in there, it's been cut, is the building inspector's salary.
Yeah, he hasn't been touched, but there's been sizable increases
He
in other
has been
places.
touched. He has been touched. Yeah,
Yep, the Board of Health was
Yeah.
down. Yep, yep.
right.
Now, there's no way we can.
Well, he wasn't getting more like a raise, he was just getting paid for the hours that he worked, and he was denied, right.
Do we add more new growth to cover some of this, or
Right, right.
I suggest we make a motion to accept this with changing the postage account by $340 and move forward with this as the article for town meeting.
Go ahead. I don't think any of us want to make the motion technically, but I'll make the motion to get it forward, to get it town meeting, and let the discussion begin at the town meeting.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
I think we discussed this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I am not in favor.
3-1. 3-1 with one absent. Okay, motion carries. You understand the process? Because you keep looking at me wondering. We're in a lose-lose situation. Okay. All right. All right, I'm going to call for a 5-minute recess.
So come on up here and if you want to talk to us.
All in favor of recess, say aye.
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 Welcome back to the Selectmen's meeting for Southampton, May 2nd at
Yeah, they're done.
20 of 8. We have one unfinished business there. We got a personnel form. John, you want to read that?
Sure. And make sure it's signed first.
Yeah.
Has all the signatures. Personal change form for Kyle Gagnon, source of funds, general fund. Been verified by the accountant and signed off. On the other side, firefighter, probationary, paramedic. Looks like emergency. Just graduated 2-year paramedic program, works as probationary medic until they are checked off as fully independent. Going from 1683 to 1833. Looks all good. We have a personal rec form, water department, water technician, new position, $21 to $26.01 an hour, 40 hours per week, comes from the enterprise fund, signed off by all the appropriate people.
Do I hear a motion to accept both of those?
So move.
No discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Done. I'll sign them, get them off of here.
Okay.
Next thing we're going to move into is the town meeting warrant articles. Where'd they go? Where'd who go?
You need a book?
We were supposed to get new ones May 2nd. I haven't seen them yet.
Oh, they.
They took them all.
Yep. Just that
There you
go.
That's fine.
That's not very nice.
John, do you see where I signed this? I don't see her. Oh, I'm sorry. This is old age kicking in. You are great, I'm telling you.
Well, we don't have to worry about that.
Good
You
thing
have
we
a
pay you the
contract.
big bucks, huh?
All right, he's gonna have it on the screen anyway, so.
Oh, you putting it up on the screen? We start with Article 4?
It looks like it.
Yep, I can do that, sir. Here, sir, why don't you take these and throw them in your
Well-
office? Bob? All right. Why don't you toss those in the office so you have them? All right, first article for town meeting is basically, this is a repeat on a lot of things. We do our award ceremony for individuals. Then we do a presentation on certificates for awards. Then we have a citizens petition, Article 3, that was submitted to the Board of Selectmen, and we're required by law to place it as an article as written.
Charlie,
Sir?
can we ask Robert for his opinion on that one? He's here.
If you'd like, Mr. Moderator?
What's Robert Floyd, 15 East Street, Town Moderator. What Charlie said is correct. When a citizen acquires the number of signatures, it goes on the town warrant. Select Board has to let it through.
Can I ask you a question on that? Because this was broached a year ago, 2 years ago? Similar.
Part of
last
it,
year.
Part of it was last year.
And it created a lot of controversy. Is there a way that we can come up with some kind of, what's the word I want to use, compromise, that we can give some people what they feel they need without?
That's subjective, and that can be discussed at the town meeting.
Okay.
You can't discuss an article, motion, benefits of, or lack of benefits
Okay,
at Select Board meeting. This is the executive branch of the government. The legislative branch will determine that.
Okay, I know, that's where I just hope there's some open discussion and compromise. I'll leave it at that, we'll talk then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. The Article 4, again, is submitted by petition. Then we have the Wetlands Protection Bylaw. This bylaw is probably 12 pages long. What I would recommend is the residents read this. I hope it's on our website. I believe it's going to be if it hasn't already. And read it carefully. I am not going to sit here and read 12 pages of bylaws.
If it's not on the website, they can get a copy from the town clerk.
The town clerk will have a copy of this, but it should be on the website as of tomorrow, well, this week, if we approve the warrant tonight.
Okay.
So the other question is, and Mr. Floyd's here, does this have to be read?
No.
Okay, so we're safe.
Thank you. If I could just see who would get to read it.
Yes, but Frizzly's not here.
Yes.
Does it say who actually wrote this up?
It came from the Conservation Commission, was submitted to the Select Board to be put on town meeting. A board that takes and submits articles to the Select Board, the Select Board usually honors just placing it on there. That doesn't mean that the Select Board is endorsing anything. I'm trying to find the end.
18.
Okay, now we're on the amendments to the dog bylaws. Basically, this is just to clarify a few things so it's easier for us down the road. As if you remember, we've had a number of judicial quasi hearings on dog complaints in town. This is to clean up a couple loose ends. Next one is the article certification for town clerk and town financial officers. Basically what this is, if the town accepts it, if these individuals take and pass their training and are certified, they would basically get a stipend of $1,000. It's basically to encourage our employees to be educated in their field, and it's a way of basically acknowledging that. Right to Farm bylaw was submitted by our Agricultural Committee. The bylaw basically is long. It only seems to have, in my mind, a couple issues I think as a farmer are interesting. It defines what agriculture is in more detail. And it also requires transfer of property to notify the person that's purchasing the property that this is a right to farm town. That doesn't mean it restricts anybody on anything, but it is in there. And now we get into budget. And Bob, you want to pick that up?
Okay, we're at 9.
9.
Prior year unpaid obligation, this is to compensate certain police officers, part-time police officers, who should have been compensated last year, but it was omitted, I guess by error. It's $2,588 in order to discharge that obligation. This is a prior year bill, so it's going to require 9/10 majority to be approved. Annual operating budget, and also voting to fix the salaries of elected officials and others. General override for the Norris school budget. This is where we were back and forth, and I haven't taken this out. This would basically constitute a general override of the Proposition 2.5 tax cap for $100,000, which, if approved by the voters, would be earmarked exclusively for the Norris Elementary School.
And this would require going to a ballot question at an election.
This will require an election, yes. If approved by the town meeting, it will require an election.
So is that the difference from what they wanted to what they got?
The request for increased funding was at $200,000 and change. $210,000. Yeah. So.
And they got 100, so should we make this 110?
This would be the other, this would be the rest.
Should we not make this, because we can see we're going to have problems next year with the budget with them, make it up to 150? I mean, I'm looking at it like, if we pass it this year,
Look ahead.
well,
Right.
It's a good point, but it may push it a little out of people's comfort zone, so we got to balance that.
well, but we're also retiring about $150,000 in debt this year.
But that's debt service, yeah.
So what would happen is their taxes wouldn't go up or down. It would just be the same. I mean, so close that you wouldn't be paying attention to it.
Well, again, yeah, I personally was promoting that for a safety complex, but.
I'm looking at this priorities before the safety
Yeah,
complex.
no, I hear you. Yeah.
So we're in the range of, what, 22 cents on the tax rate if you go to a 150?
Yeah.
So it'd be about 37.5 times 2 is 18, $50-something, $55, $56, is it?
Right, but we're reducing the debt too, so
Yeah, 22 cents.
22.
And we're reducing.
130.
You get in trouble, Charlie, for not being at the microphone.
I'm always in trouble.
Vicki Morrow, town accountant. Yeah, currently the Norris School debt, which is at $135,000 in FY18, will come off. And so for 19, we need to do the recap. Well, actually, no, it'll still be in there for this year because it will be included in the recap for 18.
When does the debt end? Is it June 30th this year?
It'll be next year of 18. So it'll
Okay.
fall off June 30th of 2009.
Okay, so their taxes will go up
It will
for
go up by
1
that
year.
22 cents if you do 150. It's like 14.6 cents if you do.
It goes up that 1 year and then it disappears.
Right. So
Based on the value that's currently, that we have is like 682,275,000 and some change worth of.
I would entertain a motion to increase this to 150,000.
So in 19, the debt's going to fall off when you go to do the tax rate for 19.
And the other argument of increasing it to 150 is because our town moderator will never allow you to increase in an article, but he will allow you to decrease it at town meeting. So if we ask for 150 and somebody makes a motion for 100, it's still a workable article. Are we entertaining questions?
Charlie, there's
I think it's a logistical quick question, but.
It is now.
Okay. So when you're saying
Introduce yourself.
Jenny Hutchison, 7 Persons Way. So when you're saying that it goes up and then will be canceled, when we do an override, that's not just a one-time
That's
thing.
forever.
Every year, North School will be budgeted $150,000 more if that article passes
Right.
on May 16th
150,000 more than this year.
than this year.
It doesn't keep going up every year. It's that be on the base, and from that point on, it's built in.
Okay. Thank you.
It works the budget better for them for years.
Right. It will make
Yeah.
these conversations in the future
Easier.
right?
Right.
Because there would be more money to
Hopefully.
potentially play with.
Right.
Well, remember, once they spend that on adding 3 teachers, those teachers now become part of the base where every year they get another 2% on top of that. So it usually helps for 1 year, and after that, any other problems that come out are new problems.
I see what you're saying. Thank you.
And Charlie, on that override, if it goes through and it's allocated for the schools forever, that's the way it is.
So you can earmark it for the schools the first time it
One
passes.
time, yeah.
But the next year, it just gets put into the levy limit. It just increases your levy limit, which you get 2.5% on top of that 150 grand. And we as a community would have to be sure that when we did the budget, we'd have to make sure we gave that money to the schools.
But that budget of the schools would be up 150,000, so it'd be very obvious if we.
Yeah, well,
cut.
exactly. Well,
Yeah, I
well,
mean-
what I'm saying is you can't say, okay, well,
Yeah.
it's not automatic. We have to remember and be cognizant of that
Right.
going forward. It just doesn't go to the school because it just goes in the big pot of
I
money
mean, if
for
you saw angry people tonight.
tax levy.
If they saw 150 cut,
Well, what she's saying is it just falls into the regular
Goes into the
budget
levy limit
process,
in
yeah.
general.
And that's
And you
fine,
got
because it still becomes
$11 million
workable.
you can tax people, and then you have to remember to split it up how you see.
Thank you.
so I suggested 150. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion at 110. It's the difference from what they're asking to what we funded.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Do I hear discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Tough crowd. Aye.
Stabilization Fund, Article 12, Norris School requested a special stabilization fund for special education expenses. Presumably, when there are funds left over at the end of the year, they could be transferred into this fund, and this would help equal out, balance out, and certainly help them cope with any spike in special ed costs from year to year.
Only special ed they can use it for, though, correct?
That's what, yes, that's what it would be. Yeah. Article 13 is the transfer station budget. Nothing new there. Article 14 is the water department water enterprise budget for fiscal 18. Transfer for the amortization of WPAT bonds is Article 15. Been through that before. And today I did add an article at the request of the chair, and I guess in consultation with the fire chief. Articles 16 and 17 are similar. One would transfer $100,000 to fund EMS ambulance related expenses, and the other would transfer $40,000 to fund EMS ambulance related wages.
So are either of these tied to the second shift?
My understanding, I didn't talk to the chief directly about this, but my understanding is this is the purpose of the wage, right?
Chief, could you come up for a minute?
Southampton Fire Chief. Yeah, the $100,000 was actually, is that one that you would put together for the transfer?
Originally, there was, I put the 100 in to transfer to cover whatever expenses and wages were in there currently.
And this is to fund the second shift?
She could probably speak better to the first part of this.
Why don't you both get up there then?
So, when we set up the ambulance receipts reserve and ambulance fees account back in 1980, whatever, 87 or whatever it was for ambulance-related expenses.
Wasn't that long ago. I was on the committee that did it.
Well, I'm just saying that, you know, it wasn't like 2 years ago. So anyway, and it has been past practice to take a portion of those fees to fund the general fund budget for whatever ambulance-related expenses have been in there. There have been a few years where we took a boatload of money to cover everything, which maybe wasn't such a great idea, but they did it anyway. So that's just for regular, whatever is in there, whatever he's currently doing to fund, to staff the ambulance, that's what that $100,000 is for.
It's not adding any services or staff?
No.
Okay.
No. It's simply a transfer from a special revenue fund into the general fund as other funding source. So you don't have to raise or find that $100,000
Okay.
in
All right.
somewhere.
Yep.
That 40,000, that same vein?
I didn't put that $40,000 in there. I don't know where that came from.
That was requested this afternoon, I thought.
Okay, and some of the discussion I thought was 25,000, was that?
Right, and then you
That's the
said,
next one, 25?
The next one is the new article put in this afternoon.
So what is 17 then?
So it's the 40,000.
I'm not exactly sure.
is
Just
that
because
not, did you not ask to transfer 40,000 from the,
Oh, would 40,000 be for the ambulance itself? Wouldn't?
no, for the stabilization, from the ambulance revenues to take and pay for EMS for extra hours?
If that money is available in that account, I would ask for that. That was what I was trying to, with discussion earlier today. I was
Right.
trying to ascertain how much money was available.
Right.
If there is that money there, and that's where Vicky could speak better to that, then I would say as much money as we could put into funding for that second shift.
Well, the idea of putting this on as an article is because we can reduce this money at a motion at town meeting.
Yep.
We did not have a line, an amount ready yet, but by having the article, we can do something with it.
Okay.
Without the article, we can't do anything.
Okay, so would the idea be to fund one of them or both of them? I mean, there's a 40,000 and a 25,000.
So this is what you and I had talked about this morning. My suggestion would have been is take out the $25,000 to the ambulance stabilization, because we put that in there to fund the purchase of the ambulance. Now, we already have $75,000 or so in there. You'd have to borrow a little bit more, that $25,000, but I think it might be better used to fund a portion of that second shift. I don't think that we will have $165,000 in ambulance receipts reserved by May 16th.
I'm sure you won't, but
We might have, I have 120 in there now. We still have part of May, and usually the ambulance receipts come to us they're like a month behind. Donna in April will get March's or February's. So there's potential to gain the 125, but not the whole 165.
Okay. And so just for clarification, just for me also, so
You can keep the 40, and if there's enough in there and we feel comfortable taking it at town meeting, we can do that, or we can reduce it to whatever we think is comfortable taking from there.
Okay, I mean, certainly, and I wasn't here for the first part of your discussion, but the money that I was looking to get was to try and get whatever minimal money was available within that account in order to cover at least a few hours or portion of.
That's what this article's about.
Okay, and both of them would go then for that direction?
I'm sorry?
So both the 40,000 and the 25,000?
25,000 would not happen because we wouldn't take it out of that stabilization account, because you're gonna be using another account to buy the ambulance.
Okay.
The 25's going in the stabilization account according to that article.
Right.
It is,
But you wouldn't do
based
it.
on what we
Right.
You wouldn't do it.
Doesn't sound like we need that anymore.
Right. But what I'm suggesting was we keep both articles, because these numbers are gonna crunch in the next 2 weeks, and we can always pass over an article.
Yeah, I'm thinking of getting rid of 18, using what's left in Article 17, and let's fund as much of the second shift as we can.
So
And see what we bring in for revenue between July 1st and our special town meeting.
So you're saying put a second shift on based on the transfer monies, and then see if we can fund it from the revenue entirely for January?
What it generates itself. And of course, if we're not generating enough money, we can always back it off or change it. So we're not committed to a second shift continuously. If the funding doesn't come in with ambulance receipts, we would then back it down a little bit.
I mean, second shift could be, instead of 8 hours, it could be 4 hours.
Correct.
Let me ask you a question, Chief. On the second shift,
Yeah.
when you establish it, are you looking at hiring people that it's going to be their primary job, or is this going to be
No.
secondary?
It would be enacted in the same way that we do now with part-time labor.
But they would be at the firehouse.
Yeah, there'd be no benefit, but they'd be at the firehouse for additional hours,
Yeah.
reducing response time.
So my question is, because I have that concern, so if we fund it through the fund July 1 through December 30th, and all of a sudden, we can't do that anymore, is that taking livelihood of firefighters? It would decrease their part-time job, it sounds like,
Yeah,
not
it
their
would- it would
full-time.
decrease their part-time. No one would lose their job. It would
Okay.
just decrease.
That would be
And
my
the challenge
concern,
we
you
have
know?
is just, it's the commitment we made with the state to
Yep.
try and do what we can to get the second shift in.
Okay.
The thought was, if there was, you can't spend money if we don't have it.
Right.
If there was some money in this ambulance account that could fund at
And
least some of the hours for the second shift, that was the intention, until we got ambulance receipts, which historically have been $200,000 a year.
Okay.
Close to.
So would it make sense to increase the number in Article 17? Because again, we can always put it down at town meeting.
Yeah, I actually, and that's where I deferred to Vicki, just because whatever that extra amount is in that ambulance fund, she would have a better
But it's kind of a
number.
guess, right?
Yeah,
I mean, right now, there's 120, so you'd have to potentially gain another 20,000 between now and May 16th.
So if you transferred 100,000, you would actually be able to run until March of next year.
Well, the 100,000 is
Is just-
in Article 16. That's different, Charlie.
That's just for what
Oh,
the
I'm
ambulance
sorry.
is currently doing. So if you leave it at 40, you potentially could get 40 out of there. But I don't know that you'll get any more than that.
So between 16 and 17, we have 140 right now, and you're saying as of right now, we only have 120.
Correct.
Okay,
So you can reduce that, but I
Answers
wouldn't
that question.
increase it
Right,
because,
so we,
I got it.
but
So-
as long as you feel like the 40, if there is 40, or even if it's 30, can get you the number of hours you think you might need to kind of start the whole
Yeah,
ball rolling.
and I guess my thing is that, we're all trying to make this work, and there's not enough money for anything here. And so if there's money in that account up to $40,000, I would utilize whatever money was there
Yeah.
to get it, even a couple to, as many hours extra additional per week until we receive more.
Even if you end up putting 8-hour shifts on the weekend or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yep, so I
That's what
would
I'm
work
getting
with
at right now.
whatever
That's-
money's available,
we already took
knowing
that
that it's,
away.
it's not gonna be able to come from the town, it's gonna come from whatever receipts we have now.
And then in whatever town meeting we potentially might have in the fall, you'll have, part of May, June, July, August, September, October, which is probably 10 or 12,000 bucks a month, minus, $1,200 $1,200 a month for intercepts to take that, you got $10,000 or $11,000 you have for those 6 or 7 months back into that to say, okay, let's look at how much more do you need? Can we take it from there to fund that?
according to what I calculated, if we fund it for 5 months, so that'd be through November, it looks like 41,666.
Okay.
So
I don't know if we like that number.
666.
that's what it
You
came
round
to.
up, I hope you didn't lop it off, you just
So
round up.
if we could fund it through the end of November, and then hopefully prior to that October, we'll have an idea what revenue comes in on the ambulance account. And at that town meeting, we may be able to fund it further. And if we can't, well, then it would end at the end of November, and we'd go back to a single shift. Sounds
Yeah.
reasonable.
Yeah, and so, so that would be absolutely great. It wouldn't fund the complete second shift, it would be a portion of, but it
Well,
would be money that.
this would fund the second shift up
Oh.
until the end of
For
November.
5 months.
Oh, okay.
For 5
completely.
months.
Okay,
Right,
I
because it
didn't do
was,
that
I
numbers.
think the difference was about $83,000 in terms of what you needed versus putting half of the standby back, instead of needing 77, you only put, you mean like there's, I think
Yep.
it was about 80 some
So
odd
we have the
thousand dollars.
standby plus this, it'll give you 5 months, you're saying?
I'm saying 5 months that will carry us.
Yeah.
At least into the October special town election, or town meeting.
No.
Yeah.
The way
And
the
at that
sound
point,
goes.
we can make a decision on how it's going, and we can see what additional revenues come in with the ALS service
Yep.
for the second shift,
That's
so.
correct. Yeah, and I
we
think
can
the
make a
bottom
call.
line is that it doesn't cost anybody out of their taxes, if this is money
Right.
that's in ambulance receipts.
Yeah.
And if there's enough money, it'll fund as many hours as we can get out of what's in that account.
And
So
it's-
Charlie, if you leave it at 40, and Vicky says there's only 39,000, we can adjust that at the town meeting down a little bit.
Yeah, but I wouldn't put it more than 40 at this point, because,
Adjust the motion made before the town meeting,
Yep.
depending upon how much is in
That
the
good?
board.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Thank you. Any other questions?
No. Sound good?
Oh, there'll be more.
Yeah, yeah, no problem.
And do we want to delete Article 18?
I would.
Yeah, it looks confusing.
because there's not going to be enough money to do all three.
Correct.
All right.
Do we need a motion for that, or can we just do it?
Well, we haven't approved the warrant, so therefore
Oh,
there's
okay.
nothing to.
Okay,
No.
just make sure we do
Article
it.
19, the transfer for the fiscal 17 budget, $57,000 from operating stabilization to cover a shortfall in the health insurance budget. Article 20, install apparatus on the town roof to counteract ice dams.
I'm
That's
just saying.
$2,000 from free cash.
Mhm.
And that'll come off our total of free cash. And it brings it down. Vicki told me today we have about 26 and change.
26,910
Yep, so that's 2 off of that, and then there's another article where we take
for free.
free cash, so it'd be 5 off, and then we could move the rest of it to stabilization or any other place the board would want to see it go. So next one is acceptance of 82 Brickyard Road extension. Been through that before. New sign at Town Hall, $3,000. That would be the other transfer from free cash. And then I put below that, transfer of free cash to stabilization. So we subtract, if the town meeting passes those 2 articles, subtract $5,000 from the total, and we put roughly 21,000 of free cash for fiscal 17 over into the operating stabilization account. Everybody agreed to that? Okay. 5-year contract for the police department copier, aware of that. Just requires town meeting to do a 5-year lease. Revolving funds, we were not going to do the new process that is set forth in the Municipal Modernization Act this year. We're going to wait a year on that. And last week, town council basically said, well, why don't you do it this year? Here's the boilerplate language. So they're doing this, I guess, with most towns. And so they gave me the boilerplate language, and here we are. Henceforth, the job will be just to set those limits, as opposed to renewing revolving funds every year. Community preservation projects, we've been through these before, but Article 26 is the main article that appropriates monies from the reserve, 10%, 10%, 10% for historic preservation, open space, and affordable housing, and also a $10,000 amount for administrative expenses. That's a standard article every year. 27 funds legal costs to accept a land donation, which you're aware of. 28 funding support for an historical commission matching grant, $10,000 grant, which would enable the cleaning and restoration of Revolutionary War grave sites. Article 29, funding for the Norris School playground equipment, familiar with that, $65,000. Funding for signage in Southampton parks, $6,000. Article 30. Article 31, cleaning and repairs to Revolutionary and Civil War graves. That would be $2,000 for that. And Article 32, grave markers for the Revolutionary and Civil War veterans' graves. So that would be $5,000. Article 33 is, we've reviewed before, that's a new vehicle for the police department, new interceptor. Article 34, new ambulance for the fire department, EMS service. 35 and 36 have to do with Glendale Road and the process that we have to go through for easements, preparing for the project. 37 is relatively new. This just came from the planning board last week also. Acceptance of Bissonnet Circle as a public way.
Is that all set with our highway superintendent?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
The last thing we're gonna deal with on that is the modified easements, and we're 99% there, so I think this will be a go.
Yeah, I got this from the chair of the planning board saying you're ready to go.
Yep.
Put it on the warrant.
Just asking.
Okay, so the plan is entitled Bobcat Hollow. Holler?
It's hollow.
Holler.
Going to correct it from the last week.
Okay.
It's only
the water department projects, the ones that we're familiar with those, again, 3 articles, 2 of which would borrow for capital projects.
May I ask the present water commissioner a question? I keep watching these emails going back and forth on the land acquisition on Cook Road and the fact of a pumping station there.
It's always been in the back of our head, but we're not quite sure that we can use it.
I was wondering because that
CPA.
seems to be part of the negotiations, and why are we negotiating that if we don't need it? But,
Yeah, so
okay.
we're not sure that we can use that property because of the CPA funding,
Okay,
but if we can use it,
all right, well, I'm
Got it.
supposed to be meeting with them tomorrow or the day after, depending on,
and we didn't know if we were going to even get
I know,
the money to buy that
and
till
we still don't know
10
if
days ago. We got to
that's
do it by,
the June 30th.
yeah.
That's why,
nice. Yeah.
okay, all right, you answered my question.
Okay.
Keep your options open if I can. Yep.
Okay.
That concludes the warrant. Sure.
Can I just make a closing sort of question statement? Or, I don't know.
Through the chair.
Can you go to the podium?
Closing statements.
I heard that on TV. No, I'm just kidding.
You like that?
Jenny Hutchison, 7 Parsons Way. So in reference to the ambulance funds, we're talking about, $100,000 for a potential second shift for a few hours beyond what their current shift is. Is that a budget line item, and would that $100,000 be potential in discussions for our school?
That
on the
money
physical-
is
No,
not-
they're totally separate, right? The receipts, all the things you were talking about.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's designated. When that was really established, I was on the committee that really established that years ago. The whole purpose was to collect insurance money to maintain the ambulance.
Right, so you're getting reimbursed for your services for the ambulance, which is then generating revenue, which pays for the
Ambulance.
shift itself and all the things that go on there.
Monies go into a special revenue account called receipts reserved for appropriation. That's the language they use here
Okay.
in the article.
Okay.
There was
It
a
can only be used for that purpose.
Okay.
There was a big shift back when Jim and I used to be on the ambulance. The ambulance was free.
Okay.
But back then, we'd leave the barn to get to the ambulance.
Okay.
There's been quite an increase in quality of care since then.
Oh, come on, we need great quality.
Yeah, we got done.
And 100,000 isn't for a second shift, it's a 40,000.
Yeah.
That would be for the second shift.
Just for that 5-month period that you're talking about.
100,000 is just covering normal
Run-of-the-mill.
wages and everything else in the budget, just an internal transfer.
Okay, and as far as the school, it seemed like people didn't want to go up today to the 150,000 that was on the table today. And so as a parent of potentially, I have 1 child in Norris right now. I have another child who will be going to Norris next year, and a potential foster child who will probably be adoptive and then entering the Norris school. I was just curious if you could speak to, did you feel like that was too much of a stretch to go that far with other residents? Or I just feel like, why not shoot for the moon? And like you said, we can go down. So I'm concerned that now we've got sort of this, okay, we can go to where you want to go, and now they're going to get nitpicked, and we're not going to get where we need to be. So I just want to speak to that as a concerned parent, because I moved here specifically because of Norris, and I do feel like ever since I've moved here, there's already been one override that didn't pass. Now there's going to be another override, and it's certainly concerning that it doesn't seem that the town, while infinitely complex to try to get everything covered, is really prioritizing the Norris School and what that service is being offered to our children.
The 110 gets them to what they asked for.
Right, but my point is that, let's be honest, they're going to try to not get there. And my concern is it won't be.
And I was
I
going for
think
the
if we go above what they asked for, town residents may have a negative effect on that. The best shot getting it approved, which I would really recommend the town approve, is give them what they asked for.
Okay.
And I would
just wanted to
cross
hear
my
the-
fingers and hope that they'll go along with this.
I just wondered what the logic was, that's all. It's just
And I come from a different angle. I'd rather ask for the 150 and let them at town meeting reduce it and make that the vote that they want, if they want to, and if they don't, then we're in a better position for the school the coming year.
Right. And my fear is there's a lot of people here today that are going to be upset to hear that 150 was on the table after the discussions that were had, and we decided to go with 110. PR-wise, I feel like that's not going to be well received. And if I feel everyone that had still been in the room, that may not have occurred.
Can I ask the town moderator a question? Since we're not actually spending money, they're just proposing an article for a town election, could we raise it at the town meeting from the 110 to the 150?
Or to whatever
if they
number.
decide to do, you're not actually spending the money, they're just putting it on an article.
Robert Floyd, 15 East Street, Town Moderator. There was a concept years ago that caught me off guard, and somebody who was involved with the Finance Committee raised an issue to increase the funding for the school for a 2.5% override, and I allowed it. Not that I would not, but it came quick. Usually there's discussion about it. That's a possibility.
So we have to be quick and agile when we ask. Is that what we're hearing?
You got it.
As long as you know the rules.
Yeah, I just want to know the rules, if that's a possibility,
Well,
and the townspeople at the time.
It's the town's meeting. The efficiency is on my shoulders, and from past experience, I've set up a procedure that we can get through a night. We change some items, we change the way we operate. It can get dramatic, which can lead to chaos, so we need order. But that is a valid point. Right now, I wouldn't deny it if it was increased, since it is going to be a 2.5% override, and since I was involved with the history of the one concept since 2005, where an item was increased based on the 2.5% override funding.
Thank you.
Fair?
Thank you, Rob.
Okay.
So I will entertain a motion to accept these warrant articles for our next annual town meeting.
I have one quick question. I thought there was supposed to be one on here for the marijuana. Wasn't there one?
Yes, but it was pointed out to us that it was a zoning bylaw and there was never any zoning hearings. We did further research and found out that the way the state's doing their own internal moratorium, it didn't necessitate us having to do anything.
So that wouldn't have helped us to be proactive and
Right.
do it? No? Okay.
What we need to do is push our planning board to start working on that.
Gotcha.
As it now stands, the state will not issue any licenses anywhere in the Commonwealth before April 1st next year. So our moratorium would only take place from April, it was intended April through June 30th. And you can do that if you want to, you get the planning board to do their hearings and you can do it in the fall. So.
I'm open for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? That's when you ask about the marijuana.
I wanted to discuss it before.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, there's the warrant articles for annual town meeting.
And signatures, please. We're gonna post tomorrow.
Man, this guy just wants everything from us. Do we have a copy?
We don't have to post until, well, any.
I don't have a good
back
copy, and that's not a good copy either.
Yeah.
You just need the last page.
Oh, you just need the last page. Okay.
It's not double-sided, it's not all the copies. So,
All right, here's the attested copy, and
here, you want this one?
we got
The old ones, right?
It's not in there.
Oh, it's not.
These are both old. Still says the first.
I marked mine with.
Okay. I have a request of the board,
What board?
this board.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion that this board acknowledge the years that Jackie Sears served on this committee and send her a letter of thank you.
I'll second that.
Third.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. And unless there's other action in front of this board,
Was this in your folder? Because I had this. What is this for?
this is for our executive session.
Okay.
The calendar of meetings, the select board meeting is May 16th, which is also the annual town meeting. The select board will be meeting just before town meeting in case there's any action that has to be taken. And we'll have an open session in parallel to town meeting in case an action has to be taken at town meeting. And our next meeting will be May 30th. We are now going to go into executive session.
You didn't have open time for the public. It's not on the agenda.
I don't have that. Was that updated?
I can honestly tell you, I haven't changed anything, but.
Probably start at 5. Won't close. Are they gonna close it?
So what does it say? I don't have that either.
Well, we were going to have a discussion about short-term
Right, we're
disability.
gonna have to pass that anyway, because we have that one issue that came up that we haven't addressed yet.
Well, that's not what she's talking about. She's talking about us taking an insurance policy out, but there's no budget amount of money in the. Virginia, can you show me that so I know what it says, please?
What was on approval of short-term disability for town employees.
That is an executive session?
That's an executive session, so it shouldn't be on that.
That's right.
Oh.
That answers.
That's why we don't have it on
Okay.
ours.
I had it at Robert Floyd, 15 East Street.
What did you find?
I don't know if I misunderstood. You're going to have a session before the town meeting, and then
We're going to have a selectmen's meeting
Yep.
before town meeting,
as you usually do.
as we usually do,
Yes.
and we're going to keep the selectmen's meeting open during town meeting.
Can't. You have to dissolve it.
Why?
State law, Commonwealth law. You can't have a finance committee or the select board can't meet in a town meeting.
I do not dispute your
Okay.
understanding of this, but would you be kind enough to find that and email it to me?
I will.
Because we still have time for that?
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
I got that.
All right. It's easy enough to dismiss the meeting, so.
hard work, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Night.
All right. Move to go in executive session. Open time for the public. Going, gone.
Your public's gone.
My public left a long time ago. All right, we're moving into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Item 2 and 6, to conduct strategy sessions, preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, conduct collective bargaining sessions, contract negotiations, non-union, consider purchase or exchange of lease or value of real estate if the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiation position of the public body, and I certainly do. I need a roll call vote to go in executive session.
Labrie, aye.
Martin, aye.
Kaneki, aye.
That one?
And we will not be returning to open session. Thank you, everybody. Have a